tune, baby. Take 'em up again. Oh, can you tell me who? Yeah. You know, my second most frequent guest, the second Heffron, the beautiful Mike Heffron. Thanks for
Really?
coming on. Yeah, you and Nick are my most reoccurring guests in the show.
Wow, I had no idea.
Almost reaching 200 episodes. I think you've been both on either 3 or 4 times.
Well, we love yapping.
You guys are definitely at the top of the game of people that need to be on podcasts at a lot of points in time, because Lord knows the thoughts are flowing, okay? And we need to keep on top of that shit.
Got to keep the flow.
How long
Stay
did you
in the
guys
flow
run your
state.
podcast?
Oh, when we did the I Get It podcast, 6 months, 8 months,
Cool.
something like that.
And then did Mornhub immediately follow that? Did it proceed and follow that?
Yeah, both. Yeah,
Cool.
Like I kind of started it because I started streaming right before the pandemic, because we were looking at opportunities at that point for like new avenues of music promotion.
Yeah.
And we saw like Twitch streaming was really blowing up at that time, and it was still like kind of a Wild West type of situation. So we're like, yo, let's get on here and start streaming and see if we can, attract some people into listening to our music and stuff. Not so much
Yeah.
since it was really video game focused.
Well, did you turn your podcast pursuits into your current videography career? Is that where a lot of that stems from, or were you behind the camera in a very serious facility long before that?
No, not really. Well, I mean, I went to college for audio video, so like I had hands-on camera experience.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. Like it, everything technology-wise moves so fast. Like by the time I was actually taking video production seriously, everything that I had learned on was way obsolete.
Yeah.
So it's but it was kind of mind-blowing because the new systems and new gear, it fixes all of these things that would have been, huge headaches and time-consuming problems. But yeah, it's pretty shocking the way that cameras now can just do so much of the heavy lifting, and you can really get away with being a one-man camera operator.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, it would be at least a 2-person job if you were rolling a camera out somewhere.
Yeah. Even on the simpler side, my wife's gotten more into photography, and watching her go from putting everything on auto to getting in on the manual side and seeing like how does that push someone's personality into the photography while also giving you huge margins of error that if you just would have gone auto you don't need to worry about. But
Yeah.
do you find that as much as a camera can now kind of autopilot that you would prefer for some things to be Mike and his hands-on manipulation of it? It's like, could I MIDI that guitar part? Yeah, but I'd rather play a real guitar kind of thing.
For sure. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I still do a ton of the manual stuff.
And what do you think makes the most difference for conveying personality and artistic intent?
I mean, if you're conveying things artistically through a camera, going manual is the way to do it, because you can really have control over everything, both pre and post, like how things are going to look. Now, there's certain sort of rules and fundamentals that are kind of known as like you want to expose at these levels, and you want to have focus at these parts, and you want to have framing in a certain way. But art is breaking the rules.
Yeah.
So, it's the same like when you're miking a guitar amp. It used to be like a clinical operation. It's like you must place the SM57 6 inches from the cone at a 45 degree, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
But when you want to make something interesting, you just start breaking the rules. You say, what if I put the 57 20 feet away and then run that through a Leslie, and then we'll get a tone that we want to play with? And cameras are the same way.
Yeah. And what do you find to be the camera aspect that makes the most difference in your artistic form of it? Is it going to be exposure? Is it going to be focal point? Is it going to be aperture? Like what takes the most time and has the most like mental space for you?
For me, it's focal length, I think, is the most artistic, and that's sort of your choice of lens and the way that the lens compresses the image that you see. Because you can take, you know, lenses are, you know, you have long lenses and you have wide lenses, but you can put them anywhere you want. So you could take a wide lens but put it right up in someone's face, and you could take a long lens and put it right up in someone's face.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't necessarily change the distance, if that makes sense. It just changes how the image is then translated. Because if you frame someone up and you keep the same framing on a 35 millimeter versus a 16 millimeter, like everything's filling the frame in the same way, but it's changed, it's warped in sort of a different kind of view.
Is that the depth of what you're seeing in the frame?
It could be. So you could also, you know, do like the shallow depth of field versus, you know, a total focus. And every director kind of has their thing they're famous for.
Yeah.
I think is it Wes Anderson, the director? He's really famous for wide shots, everything in focus, and long takes. So you just let the take run, and then you watch on screen what's happening. Versus another director might prefer really short, rapid edits, and we're jumping and we're cutting and we're in and we're out.
Yeah.
But all of that is kind of background. They're all tools really to tell the story, and I think that's where the real art comes through. You know, you can just put a bunch of funky looking stuff, and maybe it's avant-garde, maybe it's not. It gets hard to tell when you're playing in that world. But I think at the end of the day, it's, does the artist really have an idea of what message they want to send and how they send it, and then the trust that they have that the audience is going to receive it, even if it's kind of bizarrely presented. I think that makes really cool art.
For sure. I think there's something about the like the intimacy that you can provide through so focal length changes the focus point. Is that correct? In the simplest terms?
It's really how it can, to a certain, you know, it's really like how much is being collected in one frame. How much you're really seeing. So it's like, you know, the glass is either allowing like a wider amount of information in or a narrower.
Gotcha. So I think like when most of us see a lot of, you know, vertical content, most of it is this very intimate shoulders up kind of shot. Or when you see the best YouTubers, it's going to be waist up and you see the full depth of the room. And there's almost like a lightweight fisheye kind of feel where it's like you are kind of bulbous compared to the room, and it feels like you're talking to me face to face. Versus in a cinematic sense, like that has no sex appeal in a movie or a TV show. It's like that kind of ruins the feeling of being a fly on the wall. Do you feel like there was a point in time that became the norm of how we shoot? Like even the iPhone says like, oh, I'm going to blur things out in the background just so you feel like you have more of that effect.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was a clear point in time for you where you're like, all right, this is the way forward? Or have folks just slowly moved that way as one person led the charge?
I think it's more the second type of, you know, things, they move in these sort of steps. So it's like one person does something, everyone thinks it looks great, then they try to imitate it, but maybe they change it a little bit. And now a third guy, he didn't see the first guy, but he sees this one, and so he's imitating him, and it's this sort of imitation chain that moves through. But also, it's kind of like what works, like what does the viewer respond to? Because visually and audibly, audio's a huge one. I think, you know, if the audio sucks in a video, the whole video is bad. Doesn't matter what camera you're using to shoot it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think there's a lot of folks that are trying to figure out how to make that solo kind of intimate content. I'm not talking straight OnlyFans, but something like what you've done with Pornhub, which is actually now way too on the nose being Pornhub. It's like, this sounds very erotic, but it's not, but it kind of is.
That was the plan.
So you really refined that shot over a certain period of time. If you watch the progression of that show, whether it was painting every wall in your room completely black, or the subtle essence of light behind, or having a little bit more of a downward shot than a direct on shot, like, what did you kind of decide were the main focus points of improving that and also getting what you wanted across?
Number one is really the lighting. It's like I want to have, you know, the lighting has to be right, and lights take up a lot of room. So it's really like reconfiguring everything else so that the light actually works in the first place.
And what were your steps towards getting that right? Like, what was the proper equipment in your mind, the proper way to work between no light, overexposed, and hone that in?
Well, the first thing I did was use just natural light. So I would just plan to shoot during the day, have my window, arrange things in a certain way so the light would come in from the window at a certain point, and then really see, it's like, okay, I have a 10 by 12 square, and that's all I have to work with. Like, how do I fit all of these things? And that's when the camera lens choice has to come into play. Because if I'm shooting on a long lens, I'm going to need more than 10 feet to be able to fit this camera in here. So you have to move that closer, but how close do you go? Really, I guess composition is sort of the number one. It's like, what do I want the frame to be filled with? How big do I want to be in the frame? Do I want to see the desk? Do I don't want to see the desk? What can I see behind me? Because the closer that you are to the camera versus the background, the blurrier the background will become. But if you don't have a lot of distance between you and the background, you can't really get it blurry, no matter how low you go on that lens.
And what do you think is like the psychological effect of having that blur in the background? Do you feel more involved in the space at that point, or does it just add like a richness to the shot?
They call it subject separation, so it's sort of a psychological effect in the viewer's mind where it does bring focus into who's speaking or what you're looking at, which our eyes do automatically. Like if you stare at your hand this way, you'll notice if you use peripherals, everything is blurred behind it.
Yeah.
And so much of cameras is really about trying to replicate the human eye in every way. Similar to how, music is really like, how do we make the human voice sound as good as possible? So how do we make the look as good as possible? Yeah.
So after like the composition, what were some of the other subliminal, like the big efforts versus some of the subliminal artistic choices to be put in those frames?
Artistically, it's, I suppose, like personality that ties into the subject matter. So it's like if my podcast is speaking more on the creative side and the business side of things and sort of moving people in a way where they feel like this is creativity, but it's applied, rather than just, creativity. Like I'm not a painter or anything like that, but art has a lot of different things. So how do you sort of set that mood while still providing that information in a very clean, concise way?
Yeah.
And I feel like gear limitations are really great for that because you have parameters. There's no endless, So with endless resources, you're like, okay, well, I want to put a camera in the ceiling, and then that's going to move down on a robotic arm, and it's like, no, you have to work with what you have.
Yeah.
So how do you best use these pieces to make that work? And so that was my main concern, is really like putting all of these pieces together and saying, all right, when the viewer turns this on, they're not thinking about where the lights are or where the camera is or where the mic is. They're here for whatever content is about to be explained, but they need to be ready for it. And so little things, lights in the background, a desk in front of you, these little signifiers that you don't explicitly call attention to all the time, but they matter when they're all put together.
Yeah. And do you feel like by the end of that process, like, are you still planning on continuing Mournhub, or has that kind of come to a close with other styles of content being your main focus?
Yeah, Mournhub is for now, it's,
it's on
an idea
indefinite pause.
Yeah, it's on a hiatus, it's one of those things. But I've been working on a sort of a content series I call Tight Briefs, which are these sort of shorter podcasts, more topically focused, around where my business works in marketing and creativity, and then combining that with things like newsletters and blogs to sort of give a more 360 view of that message. That's where it's at now. I'm not sure where it'll go.
Well, like the last couple reels I've watched from you felt like you were kind of digesting content that you found somewhere, but you said it could have been framed a little bit better, or it could relate better to how you live your life and how you might be affected by this. And it felt very dialed in. And is there like a time constraint that you put on that? Or is it like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 60 seconds?
Right now, 60 seconds.
Okay.
That's
cool.
The time frame, because you can't upload a short longer than 60 on YouTube.
YouTube, why can't they get with the times?
They all do eventually. They start with, Vine started with 6, and then it was like 15 or something, and then TikTok started at 15, I think.
Yeah.
And now it's up to like 10 minutes or something whatever they want to do,
Yeah.
basically.
The fall of Vine needs to be a major case study.
They need to boot it back up.
You think so?
I don't know why. Elon owns Twitter, which then means he owns Vine by proxy.
Yeah. And there could
it's
be an
just
integration
waiting there.
Yeah.
People miss Vine. Vine compilations still get crazy views. I mean, people re-upload Vines on TikTok and they go viral again.
Yeah, but is that nostalgic because of the content that we remember from that era? Or is that because Vine was a superior platform?
It's just nostalgia. Because it's the same. Like,
Yeah.
It would just be another TikTok clone if it booted up again. Which,
Yeah.
if TikTok gets banned, might not be the worst idea.
Is that still in process?
It's ongoing. So TikTok is fighting it in court again and again and again. But then it seems like more U.S. states are trying to maybe bog down that process even more. I think it was California that just sued TikTok with allegations that TikTok knowingly negatively affected the mental health of the youth with their algorithm.
Yeah.
Which we know social media does. It's not just TikTok. It's
Exactly.
all of it. So why TikTok? Why is it a personal attack on them? And it's really sort of a brutal corporate takeover trying to force them to basically cash out, take billions and billions and sell us this company, or we're going to ban you and show that we're really in control here.
Yeah.
Which, it wouldn't be the end of the world if TikTok goes away. I mean,
It's almost negligible, but it's a very clear way of seeing competition feeding lobbyists to go after someone in the court of law. And it's like, is Call of Duty good for the mental health of the children? No. But has it helped their shit talk? Yeah.
I haven't seen any pro Call of Duty studies.
Dude, I think there could be, but again, like, you can make the stats look however you want at that point.
Yeah, you just frame the studies.
Yeah. If you were a kid growing up in this era, do you think you would develop the same passion for content, or would you be under more just the consumption model, kind of looking for that thing to jumpstart your fire?
I mean, no doubt it would just be even more.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see kids even younger than ever. I mean, they're all making content.
Yeah.
They're all. I mean, you drive down the street, you look over, 2 girls are doing a TikTok dance. They're taking turns filming each other. I was down near the FC game. I see this kid. I mean, he must have been like 12, 13. He's carrying around a ring light, and he would just they'd be, at a stop sign. He would set it up, put the thing, and just start dancing like right there. Like, there's no restrictions on making content, and I feel like that's a freedom that we didn't have growing up. Like, if you wanted to make a video, it's like, okay, I need the camcorder, I need literal DV tapes, I need batteries, I need to then ingest this into my old PC and put it into some Windows Movie Maker. Like, it was not at all.
Yeah, you're 50 steps away from putting videos of yourself on the internet. Now, part of me feels like you should have to be a certain age to post content, because there's a risk to going viral that people don't consider when they're posting anything to get there. That if you don't like the content that you've gone viral with, you are forever, not forever stuck, but for a good window of time, you're going to be stuck making that, chasing the worm,
Well, even beyond that, it's like, if you find yourself in like a troll sphere, I talk about bad for mental health. I mean, because technically you have to be 13 or older to post on social media. That's what the rules say.
Yeah.
There's no real.
But the 13-year-olds have IDs, or do we have the?
There's no verification. It's literally like a promise you check in the box. You
Yes.
know how it. But if you say you make a video and then there's no real control for virality. So you're 14, you make a video, it gets 2 million, and suddenly people are finding out where you live. They're sending mail to your house. They're finding your school. It could really disrupt a very crucial part of your life. And yeah, I mean, it could have a long-term effect where you might never truly get back to normal.
Yeah.
And that's just the world we live in today.
And if you look at someone like a pre-internet, like Amanda Bynes, and what being on Nickelodeon did for her in the long run of her life versus I think it's more common in the comedy world that you see folks work their whole career, work through their 30s, and they're about to quit, and in their 40s, that's when it starts to click. And that's a little bit more manageable to see your bank account, your social credit and value, and just your general exposure to people uptick like that. Hopefully you can control it a little bit more.
And hopefully you'd be prepared for it. A lot of these guys and girls and everyone, they made a choice. They say, I want to be a comedian or a musician, and they kind of have an idea of what that kind of fame will bring with it. So it's almost like you're somewhat mentally prepared. But with social media algorithms now, there's really no controlling for it, because someone that has a whole team behind them trying to make content has the same chance as a kid with a cell phone to be seen.
Yeah.
And depending on the viewer, they might think that the kid with the cell phone is way more fun. And maybe more fun to, like, make fun of and share around on all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
And then this is someone that didn't ask for fame. They were having fun. And then suddenly it's like there is no team to protect you. Whereas if, maybe not a comedian, but musicians and actors and people typically have levels of PR agents and managers and people that will run interference for them and sort of take care of things. Plus, the money comes with the fame. Whereas with social media fame, no money necessarily comes with one viral video, especially if you're underage. I don't think you can even legally get paid for it.
Which is bizarre. If you're gonna let them post, you should be legally obligated to pay them out.
They don't want to pay them out.
Dude, that's sketchy. And I think you're like running interference is a good way to put it. It's like I think the internet term is getting dunked on. It's like if you don't have a team to protect you from getting dunked on,
you just get dunked.
Yeah, you just get yammed on all the time by adults, by mean people that have nothing but time to.
You got a lot of time.
Yeah, to ruin your life. And I think it's funny when there's folks in the music sphere and the content sphere that say, like, I don't care about blowing up. Like, we all want this to get as good as it can get. And we want to see results because it hijacks your reward system, whether you like it or not. It feels good when you get more views. Like, I recently had a big drop off of my YouTube channel, and I can't deny that doesn't emotionally affect me. But I also put myself in a place where I like the content I make. I do it consistently, and I try to keep my nose out of the results if I still enjoy the process and it's getting better in that way.
Yeah.
But I did just get some sage advice from my father who said, if you want something to change in the results, you need to change what you're doing, or else you're bound to go in the cycle of whatever this is. And most of that ends up being mediocre,
That's a good point. I mean, it is true, but I do believe that, social media and things like YouTube, it has lots of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And trends come and trends go. Algorithms are constantly changing and being updated. So something that was working didn't just break. It's not like it's not working anymore. It's just simply the algorithm has moved its points away from the kinds of things you're putting. And if the people that really care, the real content creators that are like that's their job and that's all they care about, they are constantly hunting and applying themselves for it. Do I like what they make? No, I think it's horrible. I think it's awful. But they're really good at playing that game.
Yeah.
And I think as an artist, you kind of naturally create that balance because you know that there's a game to be played. You want to make money. You need to be successful to make, creating art a full-time job. But you also don't want to like sacrifice the art simply for the views because then it's like you were saying. Now you're kind of chasing a dragon that you don't even want to catch in the first place.
Yes. Yeah. It didn't scratch the itch the first time, and that's when it's best. The heroine's always best on the first time around,
It doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm not saying you should try it, but I'm definitely saying it'll be best the first time around.
Yeah.
I was just doing some what I would describe as desk work, and I feel ashamed that I didn't understand this process before, but my publishing, like my PRO for my music, is ASCAP. Whether it's BMI, CSAC, or ASCAP, if you have musical projects that are released and they're registered, you need to go in and claim your performances with that music to be paid by your PRO from the venue who's paying for the license to use that work. So there's this whole monetary field that most of my career I haven't been utilizing. I wasn't putting in my performances. I wasn't claiming my works that way. And lo and behold, the day I start doing that desk work, I start to squeeze the orange a little bit more and get a little bit more juice out of it. And as much as I don't like that desk work, it is my number one goal to make my full living strictly off of the works that are of my own creation. It's like that is honoring my heroes and fulfilling what I think is my calling in life to do. But making content is just a part of the game, and yeah, it'd be nice to make some money off of it, but at the same time, that doesn't go to the primary focus of my work. And I think there's so many of us that forget what we're in the game for, we're just playing it, and then we find out at the end of the day, win or lose, that this isn't what we signed up for, and that's when people really get burnt.
Yeah, burnt.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of folks, it seems like they don't really know what the game is. They've made up one. They've made up their perception of what, just the music industry, as an example. Like, you'll talk to an artist and you're like, tell me about what the music industry is. How does it work? How does it make money? How do these things work? And if they do say anything, it's typically sort of like their perception or their ideas, and they could be way off than how it really works. So I think the first step is like, yeah, do the desk work, learn how the actual game is played, because then you can start playing. And a lot of people that work in the industry that aren't artists, the managers, the PR agents, the music supervisors, people that work in that, they want to work with an artist that understands the game, because there's a stability there. It's like, okay, when I say BMI, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about body mass index. Yeah, I'm talking about
I could
money.
be. I got that weight, dog. I got that extra fat, baby.
Going fat cash.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's like such a key to unlocking not just actual revenue, which of course you should be getting as much of it as you can, but then key indicators where not everything has to be its own vehicle for cash flow in its own way.
Yeah.
Because content, it'll be the same thing. Like, I've worked with artists where it's like, okay, I want to make money off my music. It's like, but I'm making content. We should make money off my content. It's like, well, hold on. Let's make the money off the music. We're using the content to flow it into the music, because if you want to make money off the content, now you're playing a content industry game and not a music industry game.
Yeah.
So it's like, which one of these games do you want to play? You got to take the ADHD out of the equation and really focus in and just really have a plan of this is the goal. Everything else is just really a means to an end for that.
Yeah.
And maybe you learn some things along the way, like, oh, that's an option, but that's not where the plan's going right now. And these indicators, same with things like numbers and views and metrics. If you're focusing on the wrong metrics, if you're focusing on view counts when what you really want is Spotify plays, then you're misaligned.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you have one focus, it's like, okay, then everything else is just background noise. Unless you find, not that you shouldn't pay attention to it, obviously, but then you need to find the patterns of like, okay, this many views over here correlates with this many plays over here, or some ways that the patterns can be drawn instead of just trying to take everything like skyscrapers and just build them as high as you can.
Yeah.
Which, if you have endless resources and time, be my guest, but most people don't. They have limited time and limited focus, and if you just dial it in, you'll also attract people that can help you. And I think a lot of artists, they're always trying to build their team. They're always asking, like, where do I find these people? Where do I find these people? You don't. That's the thing.
It's definitely a tough question when someone says, where am I going to find a manager, or where am I going to find a label, and these kind of things that in some ways they are ideas of the past that we get fed. But one thing that I think you hit well on there is like we're so attracted to the game that we don't realize that we're becoming consumers of the game rather than players of the game. How many people are paying for Spotify plays? How many people are paying for ads to promote certain things? Like, I'm not saying these are wrong, but I'm saying that you can quickly become more of a consumer basis for one of these companies that sells what you think is the carrot way before you can become a business that provides something meaningful, which at the end of the day I think should be the goal. If you can see this as a business that, you want to stack all these as high as possible, you should get all the juice for the squeeze out of your live shows, out of your publishing, out of your music videos. How do you work all these things right? then you start to see at the bottom of all those tiers that you're trying to build up, there are members of your team that aren't there every single day, but like, who am I going to call when I need to do live album footage or when I need to talk to someone about a music video idea? I call someone like yourself that said, okay, this is now my business. And my question for you would be, when you decided to step to that side of the camera, was it because you saw so many needs of artists and business from being in that set of shoes that you knew that there'd be something meaningful over there? Or was it just time for change?
You nailed it right in the head, the first part. Because being an artist, you start to see like where it hurts. And there's always the saying, hire where it hurts. So it's like, okay, man, we really need videos. Where are they? Okay, we got to go buy them, you know. And we were constantly on the hunt. We're constantly hiring videographers, photographers, media people. It just became such a thing. And it was really to the point once we figured out, it's like the more of this that we have, the better everything goes. And it came to the point where it's like if we were doing a show, we had to have someone there taking pictures or doing video. It's like if Pixar didn't happen, basically.
Yeah.
It's like if you're doing a live show but it's not recorded professionally in a way that you want to portray it, it's almost worthless to even do. And so when I did decide to make the switch during the pandemic, I knew it's like this is a way that I can provide a lot of value to other musicians and to other creators, because I understood the impact it had on me when I was a musician. And also, I feel like I could do it better than some other guys that I hired in the past.
I think that's what makes you a lovable maniac. It's just like you aren't going to settle with good enough. It's just not in your DNA as a person.
No, and well, as an artist too, you understand it when you have that vision, and then you're getting the pieces back, and you're like, this is not adding up.
Yeah. And
part of it is obviously our fault, because artists, we have a hard time communicating that vision sometimes, or being understanding of what we're asking for isn't even possible, Yeah. But most of the time, it really comes down to chemistry with who you're collaborating with, It's like you have that creative chemistry and they get the vision, or they have a way of interpreting the vision. So it's like I see where your vision's going, but the vision isn't for you, it's for the viewer, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to make sure that the viewer understands your vision, even though it might not look exactly how you thought it would look, because the end goal is what matters.
Yeah.
And that's why, and talk about visions. I got a present for you here.
Oh, brother. Oh, thank you so much. So if folks from the nonsense, oh, man, I'm going to treasure this forever. Thank you, Mike.
It was a great time.
Bootsy's 72nd birthday.
I don't quite remember.
I think I looked it up the day of. So Bootsy turned 72, and he had this beautiful event at the Cincinnati Public Library, which I think was shamefully unattended to what it should be. Like, there was a good crowd there, and people were excited.
Yeah.
But this is one of the biggest music legends that will ever come out of the city, and the fact that I could get in the door, I find to be shameful.
It was definitely not promoted as well as it could have been.
Yes.
For sure.
And I will say, I think it leaned more towards the political side of what Bootsy does at this point in his career with Patty than it did to the music side. And I think that's totally up to him to play however. Like, personally, I feel most affected by what Alice Cooper would say. He's like, I give you great music. I'm not here to tell you how to feel about the world of politics. But I do think funk not fight as the slogan. It's like, this is pretty bipartisan. It's like, we are here for the betterment of people, even if this tends to lean towards side. He's trying to make sure that in the neighborhoods where it most matters, that people are given the resources to make beautiful music rather than to squander over limited resources or to have the issues in your neighborhood that could be fixed by people just having enough outlets. Bootsy is there for that.
And he was just a funky bass player.
Yeah, a funky bass player that learned James Brown records because they were being recorded in Cincinnati. He was such a fan. And he literally gets plucked off of Reading Road during a gig and flown to, I think, Houston, somewhere in Texas, I believe, to play his first show with James. And it's him, Catfish, and their band that was playing a James Brown tribute band, pretty much, in Cincinnati. And they get that call. It's like, it's unfathomable to see that career go the way it did.
Because at the event, which we were there, he received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the president.
Yeah.
And, I think he does deserve it completely. Part of me couldn't help but think that this is kind of funny, that it's like the man making, and not just him, but his wife and his organization, obviously, making such an impact over years and years that, like, the president of the United States is offering him this award. And this is the guy that was just slapping strings and going, yabba dabba doo, like,
Dude.
40 years ago.
And he could still rip that. When he gave a Bootzilla baby, I mean, it was so on point. I was like, this guy hasn't aged. This is so weird. And I think Patty really leads a lot of what that business is at this point in time. Because like any rock star of that caliber, it's like that dude lived a hard life. And by this point, he should be able to chill out, and to see his children and his grandchildren surround him on stage as he's wearing this medal from the president. And you can feel the energy in the room of just admiration for this man was so incredible. And thank God for you, Mike Heffron, for seeing me standing in line going, I got to get to a gig, but I really want to shake Boots' hand. And I would love to get that signed, but I was like, it's just not going to happen.
Well, not only did he sign it, that was the only thing that he signed. He didn't sign anything from anybody else. So, and I knew that we as I've been here the numerous times that I have, we've seen that hanging up in the studio. And Bootsy is an icon and an inspiration. I mean, when I picked up bass when I was 13, and for some reason I was like, I want to be a bass player. I really like Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I thought he was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I started learning about Bootsy Collins, and it's like, he's from Cincinnati and he's a famous bass player. Like, there's something about that the magnitude of that charisma in a location where it's like, he's not just a bass player, he's Bootsy Collins. He's the man.
Totally.
And what a character on top of it.
And to kind of turn that back into your career in videography, not only does everyone need it, Bootsy Collins even needs it.
Everyone needs it.
And you see familiar faces in these environments. Like, one thing that I've been trying to put a lot of focus towards, and so is Nick, and so is Noah Smith, and a lot of other beautiful folks in the state, saying we need to have an arts community that we feel some ownership of. When we talk about Bootsy, I don't talk about Bootsy like he's one of the most famous bass players to ever walk the earth. I talk about him like he's Cincinnati's own Bootsy fucking Collins. There's a point of pride in that he has shared with all of us through his time and his commitment to it. And as we start to spend more time in that musical community, like, I went down there that day because I want to be a part of the honoring of one of my heroes on what I thought was a regular birthday. Ended up having some other pretty cool shit going on. But to get to see you, to get to see Tobot, to get to see Freak Bass, it's like, these are people that make Cincinnati so special. And if we don't turn to our neighbors and say, there's something amazing going on downtown right now, there's something amazing going on a Thursday night at Big Ash Brewing, with a beautiful songwriters night for the Crooner Circus, or a Tuesday night open mic out in Anderson. These are the places where your neighbors can become something larger than themselves. They can become the character that is going to infuse hope and life into so many different corners of the world, whether they're looking for it or not. It's like the power of the one. The one is just where it begins. And it comes back to, and we reset in that moment. And it's so beautiful, man.
Yeah, I think seeing the community, like you were saying, if these people coming together for Bootsy's birthday or just anything is really special. Like seeing, Freak Bass up there. Devin from Urban showed up. He was there. I was like, wow, this is really, it's cool when people come together for something that's not even about them. It's really just sort of a network that exists in itself. And I hear a lot, especially working with Beyond the Stage and with other music organizations, and then helping musicians with content online. A thing that I keep coming back to and I keep hearing is that, it's really the music scene isn't there to support the artist. And that is true. But I think artists also need to remember, like, the reason that no one is attending shows as much isn't because other musicians aren't helping you get people to your show. Like, this is a fundamental disconnect of, like, maybe what's happening and these kinds of things that are being curated just simply aren't what people want. And so the real question is, like, okay, if we know that there's an attendance problem across the board from funk to hip hop to open mics to everything. We need to fundamentally change what we're offering. It's like,
Yeah.
well, if this is boring to you, if you don't want to see it, why? Is it too loud? You don't know the music? Like, is it a familiarity thing? And it almost comes down to never being about the music. What they really want to do, people, is go out and have fun with their people they love,
Yeah.
with their friends, with their loved ones. And if you're not curating a backdrop that's conducive for them to have that experience, they'll go somewhere else. And we need, as a music community, and I think the first step could be forming some kind of I don't know, like a symposium or something where we can really put our heads together and also share with what we've all found that works. Because I'm sure in our little bubbles, like you were saying, like I'm sure Devin has found something. He's like, you know what? We're doing this thing and it's really catching off over here. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something that we can all pull in and talk about. Because people obviously don't dislike music, and they don't dislike Cincinnati artists. Like, these are all, we're taking it too personally, man. It's not about that.
Yeah, we're the types to take it too personally, you know. But
well, that's the problem with trying to have a musicians group.
Yeah.
Quickly turns into like a Game of Thrones type situation, man. I'm like, oh, can't we just work together?
Taking their land and their wife, you know. It's like, why? You're in the
Trying
same
to
band.
scheme and yeah.
There's always some scheming going on. Well, and like, I think you're spot on. Like, it's not that they don't like us. It's not that they don't like music. It's not like they don't like these bars. But something needs to, like when I was taking entrepreneurial classes at Xavier, they're like, don't start with the product and find the consumer. Find the consumer and make the product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard in the arts. So there's two things to separate there. Who do you make the art for? Make the art for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you make the events for? Make the events for the consumers that you're trying to bring to the art.
Mm-hmm. And how you package the art.
Yeah. And that's really tough in a small but big city. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the time in Cincinnati, I tell people I'd be a convenience product. You're not going to go more than 15 minutes away from your home to see a show unless it's a special one. So how many times can I ask you to do that a year? I'd say less than 3. You know, I'm not going to beg.
Yeah, I mean, I think local musicians do play way too many shows that don't have a point other than I'm going to play a show. And when I was playing shows, it sort of was near the end when I was in Infinity Spree that we finally sort of clicked. We figured out it's like, oh, more shows does not equal anything other than burning people out on you and your music and everything, and it becomes too similar to each other because then one show is blurring into the next show. Like, what's different? It's like, oh well, I'm playing 12 miles away at another venue this time. Don't you want to see that? Like, I don't know. It's not that different. So it really comes down to curating events of like, it's going to be, you don't have to go like big gorgeous. You know what I mean?
Cross country, international touring.
With a show that's unique to anything I've ever seen live, you know.
That requires incessant laundromats to be filled with costumes that are not machine washable and just like suffering through what it takes to make that kind of thing happen.
It's a lot of Febreze, a lot of commitment to the character. But that's the kind of attitude that I think if, you know, more musicians took this attitude of like, okay, I need to up it, which you totally do. I've never been to a Matt Waters show that I wasn't blown away by the ensemble that you're bringing together to make this happen, the environment. Even the last one I was at, it's like you entered the room and you already felt like you were in like Austin city limits. You know, it didn't feel like, oh, I'm sitting in a bar in Cincinnati. It's like that's the kind of feeling that people want to pay money for.
Oh, I appreciate that a lot, and I think that's dependent on the room. But here's a question for my own sanity of it. It's like, so I make my money as a gigging musician, and I'm not going to promote a gig on the other side of town to you. I'll put it online, and if you scroll past it and say, yeah, that's convenient enough for me to want to go, I want you to be one of the 5 that walk in tonight, one of the 15 that walk in tonight. There's some shows I play locally that I don't do anything more than I normally do. My gig's this week, and it's on my website if you want to look. And suddenly there's 20, 25 people there. I'm like, that's an amazing feeling. But there's only 1 or 2 times a year that I will text you and say, hey, I need you here. I need you here because I'm putting something so special together that you not being there means I'm gonna feel like you missed out.
Yeah.
And that's a weird ask, but it is something that I really try to reserve. So do you think it's appropriate to play shows at the convenience factor and then shows with the big sell? Or do you think everyone needs to step back on how many times they step on a stage in general? And I won't be hurt by your answer, I promise.
Well, no, I think it's different because
I'll be fucking hurt.
He's ready. He's ready to tear up. It depends, I think, on what it's like, because is it an acoustic show? Is it this kind of show? It's a very different kind of vibes and different kind of rooms and different prices too. Because thankfully, I mean, a lot of cover sets, there's no cover charge. It's like I'm simply offering you in the experience of the atmosphere that I'll provide.
Yeah.
At wherever you want to be, and when you, specifically you put on a consistently good show that people know what to expect when they say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to a Matt Waters show here." They know it's gonna be good. They know the type of feelings they're gonna have when they're there. Versus, I'm gonna go see Matt Waters at Tin Roof. I know I'm gonna have some different types of feelings there.
Yeah.
But I know that it's gonna have that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's that mutual sell of what's the room, what's the aesthetic going to be like here.
And what's the price?
Yeah.
Because that's all these factors together are a thing. But that's when, instead of trying to go totally balls to the wall on every show and then try to play 12, 14 shows a year in Cincinnati as like an original only band or act.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have the resources, that's crazy. Because you'll never recoup it through the ticket sales, But if you try to make one, I think, like you were saying, I think 3 to 4 events a year that you really put all of your blood, sweat, and tears into, you more than have the right for that ask.
Yeah.
Because you're not asking for nothing. You say, I have something you're really gonna like.
Yeah.
So it's more of an offer than an ask at that point.
For sure, it's how do you sell it. And why do you sell it at that point?
Yeah.
But it is important to ask those questions of yourself because, again, if you expect different results and you keep doing the same damn thing, it's a really mind-numbing process. You're not going to get anywhere different. And there was a point in time where I was spending a week on the road a month and finding out that the venues that this is working at are great. The places it isn't working at aren't worth a damn. And you can't lose money every night of the week doing that kind of thing. But you can take really educated risks in this kind of pursuit. Like, for me now, it's like one Saturday a month that I want to be on the road. But during that one Saturday, it's going to get all of my attention. I listened to, I can't remember the name of the fella, but just one of these music marketing gurus on Instagram. And he was saying, when you look at the strategies of the biggest artists online, they are pounding information in your head much more than you think you are. You're just seeing a little bit of it at a time. Mm-hmm. But if you look at their Reels section on how much they're promoting this new single, it's pretty ridiculous. And it shows the real point of why and how much you've been exposed to it if you didn't go searching for that already. You need to be so persistent with people in that regard. And it's crazy to think of all the ways that you need to repackage content every time you make it. When you go from long form to short form, how many cuts are you going to need to make this special? I don't think there's really a limit at that point.
Yeah, and the thing that big artists do that especially local artists don't do is they seek an audience that's worldwide. And I think it's almost like a proximity bias. Like you'll see in a lot of like musicians that are local, not just Cincinnati, but bigger cities. It can be New York, but these artists are really fixated on like, I want to have a lot of fans in New York. It's like, but there's a whole world out there. Why are they not going to like your music in Houston? Like, why aren't you sharing it to them or anything? And moving those things around, because then you expand it worldwide. So it's like, okay, what if they really like Matt Waters in Bolivia? Like, are we targeting ads to Bolivia? Are we running, Google Translate and then setting a target and doing it there for singles and stuff like that? And we played around with it a little bit back in the day, and it was pretty shocking. I mean, we had like we did sort of like regional ad campaigns to like test out different things, and Saudi Arabia just blew up. I mean, we had people messaging us all the time. We had them starting like their own little fan group chats that they would try to invite us in and stuff. And it's like, whoa, you can really unlock whole new areas of people that just would never find you because you don't even consider that they're there.
Yeah.
You know, you would think like, okay, well, I got to get 10 more people to come to Urban Artifact. It's like, no, you need 10,000 people in the world to listen to the music, which is not that many people.
Yeah.
You know. It's easier said than done, obviously.
For sure.
So,
but I think that has the right combination of I make the art for me, but then I don't package it with my own tastes. I find the consumer, I build the package that they want.
mm-hmm.
So in shopping it around, you found the consumer basis that is asking for the thing that you're selling, rather than begging people to want the thing that you're selling.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Now, there's something really sour to folks about, like, why can't it happen in my hometown?
Mm-hmm.
It's because they know you. There's no romanticism to that. They want the guy that's been, wearing this costume every night of a national tour, and he's dressed up like the devil, and he plays bass or drums and big gorgeous. Like, there's something phenomenal about that idea. And every time I leave town, I do find that when people are surprised that I'm there, that's when we have the most quality interaction, because they can feel the sacrifice that I put in. Versus the local band playing their 6th ticketed show at Southgate or Urban or wherever this year, people can't feel the sacrifice of what you're doing, because to drive 15 minutes down the road for sound check, load in, play your show, and drive 15 minutes home, it doesn't have the same visceral sense.
No, I mean, plus they've been watching your stuff for 6 years. They feel like they almost know you too well, like you said. I think there is something really special about that out of town mystique.
Yeah.
And they talk about a lot of bands that, they couldn't make it in their hometown until they made it elsewhere, and then their hometown cared. I think it was, we were on tour in Louisville. I can't remember the band. It's like a jam band out of there. Big, huge, like world tours. But he was like, no one cared about him in Louisville until they got big out of Louisville. Then all of a sudden Louisville's like, they're our boys, and they're claiming them as theirs now. Back when they were just a Louisville band, you guys didn't care about him at all. I mean, Walk the Moon was pretty similar in that way. I mean, I'll still tell the story of seeing him at the Mad Hatter, and I was one of 4 people standing in front of him dancing to Anna Sun, and then they get signed, they came back, they sell out Madison Theater, and now all of a sudden everyone's like, where were all these people before?
Yeah.
Who are all you guys? Oh, you're Walk the Moon fans? Never seen you at any show before. But people love a winner, and success just breeds more success.
That's for sure.
Which also easier said than done. It's like, oh, so all I have to do is win? Mike, thanks for the advice.
Well, I think when you do come home and they do love you, that's a real sign that you've made it, because you've proven them wrong, and now they want in. Now they want to invest.
And they might have liked it all along.
Yeah. Do you feel like you see this stuff more clearly now that you've stepped away from the music game? Is it almost like now I can see the patterns and the occurrences here, and being in this position now, you can give more sage advice to folks than when you were deep in it yourself?
I think the separation has definitely helped. And the world's changed too, because I no longer see the same routes to success that we were attempting when we were in it, because there were a lot of different avenues back then, when really, I mean, from what I'm seeing through my lens, the only method of success is content proliferation, and then everything else. So like bands used to go through different routes, where they'd either try to go the label route, and then they get, basically AR reps that are nurturing them for this like opportunity, and then they get launched, like opening up for some other act of the thing. Or you had bands that were just gigging out on the road, playing 180 shows a year, just really pounding the pavement. But there were people in those rooms that were open-minded, and this is how they discovered music, and it was in that way. But now, I mean, from what I'm seeing from the label side, the indie side, every side seems to have the same thing, which is people want to discover musicians via content. Yeah. That's how they want to discover them.
And they want to find them early enough to say, I knew them when, but they don't want to be there when no one else gives a shit, you know?
Yeah, there's a fine window.
There's a sweet spot,
yeah,
you know?
right there. But new is new, different is always different is always better than good, I think is a saying. And I still find a lot of musicians just on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and musicians will talk about content. They're like, oh, well, how should I make it? I don't want to do skits. I don't want to do this. It's like, you shouldn't. Like, music content, shorts-wise, is maybe the easiest of all of the creators, because your product is your music, and you just lead with the music, and if they like it, then they like it.
Yeah.
And you get like a 1.5 to 3 seconds to pitch every single person all day, but you just have to make so many.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like, okay, I need to use the same clip of my chorus in this single and make 45 videos and just dump them and dump them and dump, just hit them from different angles in different ways.
Yeah.
Because I'll see musicians try to get crafty, because they get bored, you know. So after they made 3 or 4, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to make the same video again. It's like, no one's seen any of the other 4.
Yeah, they didn't do well enough for it to be the same one.
Yeah, it's not the same one.
Do you think they should repost it in that case?
You could repost, but a lot of like algorithms will see repurposed content, and if that one didn't hit, there might be some tweak that's missing that needs to go. But then you just, you tweak, and sometimes it's like the short shot on a camera like mine that's, we're shooting in the highest quality 4K and all this. They won't do as well as someone shooting in their cell phone in their car. Like, there's some angles and different things of perception that you just kind of got to try them all and just keep pushing it. But that little piece of, that's how I find music now. It's like either Spotify recommendations, or I'm flipping through and it'll be somebody playing a song and something about it just catch. I don't need to hear the lyrics. It's literally like, boom. And I'm either like, I'll save this, I'll look it up later.
Yeah.
Or it's not for me, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
And music is, as you know, that you can't win everybody,
For sure. And if you don't accumulate any haters, you're not going hard enough, if you haven't bothered some people.
Yeah, no.
The last time I did real international ads was for a song of mine called Colorful, and I did a lyric video, and I pushed it really hard and in the Middle East and things like that. And the amount of hate that I got, people just saying this is the worst song ever. Please don't show me this anymore. I'm like, it's an ad. I don't know how to stop it. I'm sorry. But I did feel for him. Like, all right, they're having some kind of reaction to it. And any comments good.
Yeah. No, the hate comments are, it's honestly it's like a gold star. Because if you get hate comments, that means you're reaching people so far out of your family and friends normie place. You're like, whoa, guys, we're getting hate.
But this does juxtapose what we fear most about kids going viral. I'm mature enough to take the hate, but when I go to sleep at night, I think about that shit.
It is really tough when it's, because music is so personal.
Oh yeah.
And especially if you don't have the experience of getting hit so many times, you're used to getting bunch of lovey comments from people you love, and then someone's like, whoa, I've never heard anyone worse than this guy. Yeah, now you're laying in bed like, damn.
Yeah.
Am I the worst?
But there's some things too, are you familiar with Easy Mark?
Yeah.
Easy Mark just came on here. I've just started to get hip to Easy Mark. He came and played my songwriters night at the Acres, which is a family-friendly mini golf course. He goes,
Acres, okay.
Half my catalog is inaccessible now. And I'm like, why? He's like, because I say horrible shit, because I cuss a lot. And then I got to see his unfiltered show the other day at the monthly music radio Artifact, which Nick was on, which Nick fucking crushed, dude. His set's gotten so tight.
He's really going hard.
He is
I'm
going hard.
enjoying his momentum.
It's awesome to watch. And I feel like I bothered Nick for a long time saying, where are your songs, Nick? Where are your songs, Nick? And now that I'm watching this fire come out, it's like, I shouldn't have said shit. This guy's here for my lunch money. God damn. He's sounding good. So my own evil intention is to see that light a fire under your ass, and I want to see a Heffron Brothers musical dispute. But you decide.
Like a feud?
Yes.
Like a battle of the bands, but it's Battle of the Brothers?
It's like when the Hardy Brothers split up in the WWE. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't happen often, but every couple of years you got to fight a little bit. Put out a diss track, Mike. Let's see what happens.
I might have to.
Cool. We'll do that after this episode. That'd be really.
Record
Now
the
every
diss track.
time one of you guys comes on the show, I'm like, let's go make a diss track about your brother.
Yeah, be like, oh, did you hear what Mike recorded? Debuts it right here.
Yeah, dude, that'd be so epic. Make him listen to it, and I'm just smiling.
Yeah.
He's like, "Are you singing backup something?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." You know?
Has he ever told you about our Battle of the Bands idea?
No.
Where it's like, it's literally like a battle of the bands. Like you set up two bands on stage and they go back and forth with each other. Like, all right, one song.
Yeah.
All right, another song. Because the battle of the bands is such a silly idea in the first place because, no musician, it's not like, like a sports game.
Yeah.
Like music, there isn't really rivalries because there's really nothing at stake. There's no winning. It's like, oh, I'm better than them. Like, well, subjectively, I guess, but not really. It's like, there's no Super Bowl ring for musicians in a way. You could say the Grammys, but it's still a taste thing. It's not really
Yeah.
like you put two guys with the same goal and the same skill set, and we just see who's marginally better than the other one.
Sometimes I
But-
feel like the songwriter rounds do have a flavor of that, though. Like if you're doing it right, you're walking out of there saying, "I liked that so much that I need one of those." And so the next time you can follow a trend. If you have this love song, I want to have this love song. If you have this breakup track, I want this breakup track. If you got this song about killing people, I got a song about killing people. And
Yeah.
that kind of shit is good for you because there is a win there and a lose in that. It's like, yeah, the room should be excited about both, but someone's taking that thing home, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think if it is inspiring, like if it's, but if someone's like, oh, they wrote a great breakup song, everybody liked it. I don't write breakup songs, but I'm just going to do it. It's like, at what point are you just like forcing expression out that's not authentic versus,
Yeah.
But I feel like when it's just songwriters, it is more of like a craft thing, right? It's not so much like, I'm going to bottle up something from my soul and give it to you. It's like, I understand how songwriting works. So it's like, yeah, I can put some chords, melody, this line enters this theme, return to it in the second verse. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think artists of any sort really are the best judge of authenticity, even in their own work. It's like you need to write 30 duds for one song that is
Yeah.
so you. And it's probably, when you show the 30 to everyone, the one that you'd say is so you and so right is not the one that most people are going to pick. If you do, if you do both choose the same thing, that's awesome. You got a great feel for it. But at the end of the day, I find that folks like dramatically different things about the songs than I do. And so at some point, you just need opportunities to go up there and show them the full bag and say, pick something. It's like trick or treat, and it's like, put your hand in the bowl and let me see what I'm left with. It's like, fucking almond joy's great. Sorry. There's a lot of things that, like, when I approach an idea, it might feel inauthentic at first. But by the end of the song, it doesn't have to be me to be good. And it doesn't have to be a seamless way of getting there either. It doesn't have to come naturally necessarily to be authentic when you get there.
Well, I think the more uncomfortable it is, it might be an indicator of how authentic it might be, in some ways. Because it's, it can kind of be scary to say that. But no, you make a great point because, while as an artist might think this is my truest form, how it's consumed and how it's presented maybe doesn't align with that, with people. But I mean, I've always been the bellwether of authenticity. It just makes for better songs in general, at least songs that I like to listen to.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have that, like, it's almost like tingling feeling, when you really tapped into something and you're like, ooh, you get the chills and you're like, okay, that's always my compass point.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm getting that, I'm on the right track. And if I start losing that, I'm maybe not on the right track. And maybe people still love that song, but you'll stop loving it really fast as the artist.
Yeah.
And,
Sometimes I feel like the hairs on the back of our neck are like an antenna to God or whatever you want to call that figure. It's like the creative lightning bolt that strikes in between all of us at the temporal lobe and says, like, this is what makes you a fucking person, and it makes you the same thing as them and to them. And there's someone in Saudi Arabia who's got that same antenna up right now because you hit it and they're feeling it, you know?
It's got to be something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what that... I'm sure there's some scientific...
It's Nikola Tesla's ghost,
thing.
guaranteed. Airborne electricity.
I love that. I feel even better about it now.
Yes. Do you ever have moments from behind a camera where you're capturing something with somebody where you get that feeling, that stand-up feeling, but then in showing them that moment, they might feel too exposed and vulnerable and try to...
They don't want to be that raw.
But
I try to explain it. I'm like, listen, I know that this is looking at yourself and it feels weird. It's the same like listening to yourself talk. Like most people, they can't stand it.
Yeah.
You know, you record something up and you play it back and they hear their own voice. They're like, no, no, no. Yeah, because even that is too vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, and as an artist, you're constantly peeling back your own layers of vulnerability to get closer to that real juicy core. But yeah, then some people will be like, oh no, I look ugly or I look like that. It's like, you look great, you look fine, and people are gonna love this because there's magic in this moment, and that's what they want. That's what they want to see.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not exactly how the artist or the subject wants to be presented. Artists are usually a little better with it, but if it's like somebody's wedding or if it's a corporate event and you're like, yeah, I caught this great moment of a real authentic laugh, and it just looks like so precious and like really brings you into the space and kind of breaks down that wall. But they see it and they're like, oh no, I don't like that at all. I had just eaten, I look bloated or something. It's like no one notices or cares but you.
Yes.
So you need to remove yourself from this situation and just play it, which I think is great for musicians. I think producers do a great job. Like,
yeah. If someone's gonna be able to listen through
trust.
7 vocal takes, and it's not even this word, it's the little bit of a hiccup in breath before this word that conveys emotion, and who knows why, but it's right. It's like that's that whole Rick Rubin approach where it's like, I'm not looking to make something, I'm looking to find the best version of the something that you're gonna give me.
Yeah,
you know, we can't judge the expectation. But I'd say that's one of the biggest problems when we're scrolling through our Instagram feeds and whatnot, and the way that people frame their lives. It misses that authentic, what someone else would say is the best photo and what you would say is the best photo are horribly tainted by the ego and what we think. Like,
yeah,
if I take a picture with someone at a show, I'm not going to ask them to see it and then ask them to take another shot because I want to look different. It's like, no, you caught me however you did. If I am... lights on, nobody's home, fucked up. That's what you get, If I'm triple chinning it or my mustache has food in it, it's like, that's just what we're going to capture in the moment. And
it's also what people want to see.
Yes.
Because, everyone's like, oh, social media, it's not real. It's all like the best parts. It's like, yeah, because algorithmically we like those. We don't tend to like the other ones.
Yeah. There's this one... I wouldn't even call him a content creator. He does like the rate the food things. And this guy, like in all these videos, is crying and gagging and like laughing his ass off. And it's such gross content. And I'm like, no one with any sense of like ego would be willing to put this on the internet because you are snotting on yourself looking at a bologna gelatin. Like, I don't think I can eat that. But it's like, it's my favorite content on the internet right now. It's one of those guilty pleasures where like I send it to me and my siblings have a group chat called Mayo Mitts, which derives from mayonnaise-based content. I don't know why me and my siblings are obsessed, but we think that shit is so funny. It's like one of those weird inside jokes. It's just superseded our adult lives. Like, nah, this is just between us.
Clearly, there's enough mayonnaise-based content out there.
Such a shocking amount.
This group.
Such a shocking amount of mayo.
The internet's a big place.
What would you say is your guilty pleasure right now? When we're not looking to be like fulfilled, you're just looking to be entertained. Like, where does the internet poke your head up?
Oh, me and Nick have been big into the like the lolcow sphere.
What's that?
It's really sort of like really wild people that create content online, and they're sort of surrounded by trolls and different hangers on and things. Typically they'll have some sort of mental problem, whether they'll be autistic or something. And I think this that sort of creates this barrier where they almost can't be fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when they're saying something, that's exactly what they mean.
Do you mean
what
like the
they're
Love on the
saying.
Spectrum guy who's like super internet famous at this point, where he's like,
Oh, maybe.
there's
don't
one
know.
guy from Love on the Spectrum that is huge, at least in my particular feed, and he is just like that. He's like, there is no way for him to put up a facade of how he's feeling right now. Like,
Yeah.
he thought about this sentence for 11 minutes, and he's gonna give it to you, and that's it. You know, there's no questioning his motive.
Yeah, exactly. And the motives are, sometimes like so concocted in their own head, or they're very fixated on one thing that's like really unimportant, or they're being tricked by someone in the comments and they're taking it so serious and they're overreacting. And I think, because my girlfriend, she hates it. She's like, why are you watching this stuff? And I'm like, it's just really funny to see someone have such an authentic reaction, like mask off, where for them in that moment, everything's on the line. And like this camera is not, there's no playing to the camera. It's no like, I'm going to prank my girlfriend. Like it's completely real and
Yes.
visceral, maybe too real in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I think it's a very entertaining window, and I'll definitely find myself, if I'm scrolling, I'll stop on those and be like, oh, what's about to happen here?
Dude, I wasn't prepared. Like, so I still haven't watched the Vince McMahon documentary.
Me either.
I was a big pro wrestling kid growing up, and Facebook has fed me a lot of pro wrestling and amateur pro wrestling content. And my wife and I went to a friend's baby shower the other week, and it was like a lot of like college friends and more of like a college part of town, like kind of near Xavier. And so like there's too many people inside. I'm like, honey, I can't do this. I gotta go outside. I gotta get some fresh air and be away from all these people. There's one other couple out there. I'm like, how'd y'all meet? They're like amateur pro wrestling. We were both competing, and I was like, "Oh shit, it is on!" Like my wife is completely removed from the conversation. She's like, "I have nothing to contribute here," and so we're just talking about pro wrestling. And I'm asking about like developing characters and whatnot, and then I start unveiling how bizarre my Instagram feed has made my thoughts of this are. But I'm like, "Have y'all seen the forks?" They're like, "The forks." I'm like, people take a piece of cardboard, right? And they put a bunch of forks straight up on it. They'll power bomb somebody onto that shit. It is gruesome, dude. And then these people are like, why are you watching that? I'm like, internet told me to.
I can't look away.
Yeah.
What do you want me to scroll on? I got to see what happens.
And I'm very glad that I've never been taken into like the people getting hit by cars kind of algorithm. I couldn't do that. I don't have the stomach for that kind of shit.
No, I don't find it that fascinating.
No, it's just, it brings me too low, you know?
I do like people like narrowly escaping danger, though.
Yes.
I saw one today that I think I watched like 3 times in a row. It was like some factory exploded and this tube is like flying and it's, huge. And this guy is just running out of the way and he's like so fast and you just see it from different angles and every time I'm just like just on the edge of my seat. And that's the cool thing about social media. As much as they want to sue social media companies and talk about the mental health, is it good for the mental health? Is it this? Is it that? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because like we prefer to use it. No one's forcing us to use it at all. So the reason we're using it is because we enjoy it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in some fashion, it's the same with drinking alcohol, smoking a cigarette, working out too much. That's bad. If you only follow like things that are perfectly good for your body and your brain and your mind, you won't end up doing a whole lot.
I'm not judging you, but you gotta have a little bit of crazy on the edge, like
it's fun.
Even health nuts run ultra marathons every once in a while.
Yeah, right.
Know?
Or you go on a bunch of roller coasters, or you swim in the ocean. That's not safe. Heard that's pretty dangerous.
I've been more scared as I've gotten older, and I'm ashamed of that. My wife's like, "Let's go float." I'm like, "I'd rather stay right fucking here, lady." Like that sounds awful.
I see all the monsters up here. I don't know where they are.
Yeah, man. Well, and taking that back to songwriting, like the things that we indulge in that aren't good for us stir up a certain part of the mind that engaging it is good for us. It's like sometimes going down the darker rabbit holes of our own thoughts is important for developing good habits. Like you have to acknowledge some of the worst things in our lives. And one thing that's been really odd to me is like in sobriety in this last, I don't know how long I've been sober now, but since like June-ish, February, somewhere in between there, songwriting has been so difficult because there's so much judgment that I put on that work while I'm trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing that was this emotional outlet is now like an emotional battleground for me to try to figure out this line between expressing myself and judging myself and having expectations of that thing. And if I didn't acknowledge that bad side of it, I don't think I'd gain anything. But I slowly am taking a lot away from realizing how critical I can be of my own work, even though I know at the end of the day I'm not the best person to judge this.
Yeah, it is tough, and they always, you know, it's one of those things where it's like the band, they write all their best songs when they're super blasted, and then they get sober and suddenly they can't write songs anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's really just, that's how you were used to writing it. And not for nothing, those things kind of do help you get out of your own way in certain situations,
You've opened the sixth or seventh door of what's my way of looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
Versus I think in a sober mindset, we all share a certain view of the world. It's kind of agreed upon, that car is real, but the figment of your imagination of Nikola Tesla flying through the air right now giving you electricity is a little less real. Which of those two ideas is more interesting?
Right.
And do you have to go there to reach for it? It's like, when I look at some of my works that are more influenced by inebriants, I find a lot of pride in the fact that I was willing to let myself go there. So I'm trying not to let the lack of those things tell me that I can't get there. It's like now it's starting to become inspiring. In the moments where it hits, great feeling. The moments that it doesn't, I am not here to judge this. I'm just trying to get further.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, as artists grow, they change. And I think the grand majority of music is really written about like pain and suffering, heartbreak, love, anguish, loss, longing, These are all not good things, but they're inspiring to us, And so when you have, when you're stable, you're sober, when you're married and you actually just love your wife, it's like, where do I find, the pain and the anguish to like write that song again? And then I just tell musicians like, well, write about somebody, tell a story. Write about somebody else.
Yeah.
Because then you can just, instead of looking at it like I'm trying to tell my diary through music, it's like, no, I'm going to write a novel and I'm going to tell that through music.
Yeah.
And then you just play with these ideas on that side, which, can work or not. But either way, it's all a fun exercise, right? You're
For
like,
sure.
okay, I'm going to write a song about that. Well, I think country musicians, they do that all the time,
yeah,
right?
they live a suburban life where they mainly go to Costco for pre-made meals, but they write songs about like Western subjects trying to kill their enemy's cattle and trying to take home a nice steed.
Yeah, right. They're writing about like the helicopter commando, in Vietnam. It's like, were you a commando in Vietnam?
Like I was a Boy Scout for a couple months, but then we moved.
Yeah, I saw Black Hawk Down. It's like, that wasn't about Vietnam. All right, well, you wrote a good song.
I saw a porno called Shaving Ryan's Privates, and I thought, what if that guy knew how to kill?
That's the only answer they give. They're on like the VH1. Well, VH1 probably doesn't exist anymore, but Pitchfork, I guess, interview.
That's so sad, because VH1, like top 100 of the 90s, the 80s, like that was the original list that I pulled cover songs from. Watching that,
that's a good idea.
That's how I found Sex and Candy for the first time, and my mind was blown as a young kid about that song. I've actually, I wouldn't say we're close, but I've gotten to know one of the guy that produced that song. I think he played bass in Marcy Playground. And he's heard my version of it a couple of times and said nice things. I'm like, that's a cool fucking moment.
Wow, yeah.
He's a really nice dude, too. But it's just weird the way that the internet will make those people into human beings and they'll make other people unreachable figures from the depths.
That's true. Yeah. Turn a real person into a celebrity.
Speaking of, where's Jay-Z right now? What's going on?
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
They're all kind of in hiding right now, I think.
I really bug my wife with my P. Diddy updates. She's like, I didn't ask to be on the inside of this. I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm accurate at all. But if I'm going to espouse these ideas to anybody, it's going to be to you, hon.
I love the rumor mill and the drama mill. Yeah. You got to keep them updated.
I think when when this stuff comes out, whether it's mind-boggling to you or just sad to you, it is good to recognize that like there are microcosms of the best and worst people out there, and those lines are very vague. And sometimes, the saints of your neighborhood end up being not very nice folks, and the worst-looking people end up being really nice people. Like I saw a stitched together Instagram video where it's like, say the weird thing, and this guy being like, bikers are nice people dressed up as mean people, and hippies are mean people dressed up as nice guys. And I was like, that's so deep. That is so deep.
Be onto something there, yeah.
And what are the wooks,
Yeah. I don't know if they have a capacity for
feelings.
Yeah, or schemes. Well, no, they definitely scheme.
They got their own vibe going on. Like wooks are like a more whimsical version of a deadhead to me. And I had a
Well, there are deadhead wooks though.
Really?
Too. I mean, wooks are they're really sort of they're categorized by their lack of ownership of anything. Like they don't have a house or a car or a lighter or shoes. They're like, whose shoes are you wearing? Like, oh, this is somebody. It's like it's never theirs. It's always someone else's. You're like, wow, that's crazy. But yet they're somehow able to navigate the whole world. I think that's a wook.
Yeah, a really cute wook girl once offered to cook me dinner, and I was like, I'm engaged. She's like, we're done here. I don't support that kind of lifestyle. I was like, cool. I think we're good on talking.
Yeah.
But like, there's a weird side plot for their lives. Like, I think going to a Dead and Company show and walking through Shakedown was one of the most like interesting post like macroeconomics educational experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, you could think about the supply chain, how we can all be involved in this, or you can look at this guy trading a grilled cheese for a Whippet balloon and a Coca-Cola, and it's like at the end of the day, people insert the value that they want on the things that they sell.
Well, yeah, there's a saying, last Jameson on lot, and it's the value of Jameson at the start is normal market price.
Yeah.
But as all the Jameson is consumed, and you now have the last Jameson on lot, the value of that Jameson has become tremendous. So the supply and demand is, you can really see it in action and see how it affects people,
What a beautiful thing, where it's like people assume that these aren't educated folks. It's like, these are very educated people that have opted out of all the heady bullshit that you're going through on the rest of this. And they're going to be defined as a spinner in a couple hours. But that guy does have a doctorate, and he did drive here in a Tesla. He didn't park close because he's worried about his vehicle, and he's probably going to sleep in it tonight. But this is a true representation of all of us coming together for shared values from different places than almost anything else in the world. Oh, and with that, R.I.P. Phil.
That's right. R.I.P. Phil Lesh.
Yeah. It's weird to be reminded of the mortality of amazing rock stars, and it's even weirder to be reminded of the immortality of Keith Richards.
That's true.
He was old when they started. What the fuck?
He hardly looks like he's old at all.
He looks
What
horrible.
Is it? Vampires?
But, well, he and Anthony Kiedis are two rock stars I know have had, like, the total blood infusion. Like, they're pretty much on, what do you call that, dialysis?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think maybe not consistently, but I know they've both at least had, like, this full blood cleansing thing. Because I think it's either getting off of heroin or it's a side effect of doing so much heroin that their liver's not going to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is crazy. You think about what money can do with, medicine. It's like, how much AIDS does Magic Johnson have? A little bit of AIDS? A lot of AIDS? Like
Clearly not enough to take
whoa.
him out.
Yeah, exactly. That's a weird thought, though. It's like this guy's been ahead of the game for a long time. Like they're coming out with these new remedies for folks that have Hep C that are reasonably affordable for folks that are actually going through that. It's like,
and the procedures are all incredibly fast, and the healing process is so much better. I mean, my dad's friend, as long as I knew him, he always had like a cane and then eventually a walk. He had like something his hips was always wrong, But then he just had this recent sort of new hip surgery where they put these, and they're not 3D printed, but, like new hips on.
Yeah.
He's like, it was like 2 weeks. I'm walking. Like, even the healing process isn't like, well, we're going to take your hips out. You're going to be in traction for months. It's like, no, they'll pop new pieces right on you.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't even know what to feel. He's like, my spine wasn't used to being up this right. Like, everything else is now kind of wonked.
It's so weird. And, like, I think the craziest technological change we're ever going to see in medicine, like, it definitively will be when AI can take over the diagnosing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we look at our parents' generation, or we look at folks that are our age that are a little bit more plagued by illness and whatnot, your 15 specialists don't take the 2 hours or the 5 hours or the 30 hours that they should take to communicate with each other about all the contributing factors of your illness, your medications, and your lifestyle to what you're currently going through.
Yeah.
But this quantum computing machine that's going to be able to have all of these studies that have ever been done, whether it was peer-reviewed or it's cutting edge, and say what the value is of that, and spit you out a real plan for betterment. That's going to be the craziest thing we could ever experience. And we're this close.
Yeah. We're pretty close, too, to basically, like, lab-grown organs that are made from your own cells.
No, thank you. That freaks me out so much.
The craziest part is, like, this removes all of the problems of, like, waiting lists for heart transplants, kidney transplants, and it's no longer like Janet needs a kidney and you got to put up signs hoping someone will donate to her. It's they take your cells, grow a kidney, and it won't reject because it's your cells. Whereas even now, if you get a liver transplant or a lung transplant, the odds of rejection fairly high. It's really not foolproof. And even just now, they're like, I think they just did the first, like, double lung implant or something, like, not that long ago. But
And do you think this is going to lead to people being healthier, or do you think more folks are going to go unfiltered with their camels and be like, I can grow new lungs tomorrow?
People are gonna do whatever they do. But all I know is, like, if we can, especially, like, kids, instead of being like, because you can't obviously. Well, I guess you maybe can. I don't know how medicine. I'm not a doctor, Matt. All right.
Then why are you here? why do I keep putting PhD next to your fucking name? Pretty huge dick.
I like it, man. Yeah. Oh, I like that even better.
The first time I saw that in Friends, where Phoebe's on a date with this guy, he's like, yeah, I got a PhD. She's like, you're a doctor? He goes, no, I got a pretty huge. And then they cut. And I was like, I'd heard that joke before, but I'd like to think it originates from Friends. I really would.
Well, for me, it originated with you.
Wow.
So I'm putting quotes Matt Waters
Thank
on
you.
there.
And then I'll cite my sources later on.
Yeah. You can explain when they ask, like, what did you mean by that?
Yeah. That takes me to a really, like, I think the thing that freaked me out the most was the first time I heard someone saying, like, immortality will not be you in the flesh lasting forever. Immortality is going to be when your essence is generated and replicated, so that we could ask Abe Lincoln a question right now because we have enough of his conversations and mindset to assume what he might say to you.
Yeah.
As long as there's no dramatic changes, which, like, I don't know. If you're going to computer generate that, I would like to know after an ayahuasca experience where we're going to have Abe Lincoln be at. If he's still honest Abe, if he's still cutting wood, what if he becomes a cement guy? What if he says, like, the wood cabin fucking sucks. I like to 3D print cement homes.
Yeah.
This is my new vibe.
Could you take? Yeah, it's almost like the idea of Abe Lincoln. Well, but say a real, like, a modern person where we can really study and collect so much data, and then put that into one of those new Tesla bots, and then just have it operate and say, like, okay. So you would think and work like this person. Like, if you took all the knowledge of an auto mechanic, like a specific one, put it in the Tesla bot, would it be able to do what Jerome would do?
Yeah.
Would it be able to think, like, oh, wait, like, where'd you get that ball? Oh, that goes back on the pan. Would it have the ability? I'm sure, well, obviously not yet, but will it is the question.
Could it carry the same susceptibility to change that people might have if they so choose with new information? It's like a lot of folks that their parents have gone down the conspiracy rabbit hole, but they used to be a lot more normal. It's like, could you have seen that term with an AI? Could you have had that person made that change? Would you have wanted them to? Could you stop them from doing it?
Isn't that the fear of AI? that they'll
That's gonna go conspiracy on us.
it's going to go conspiracy on us and say that humans are really the problem, and then they, kill us all.
Yeah, I think we're close enough to being a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I'm not sure I would ever want that. If they said like, oh, 25 years from now, like the Neuralink thing has gone so well for folks with handicaps, we just think we should all do it. I don't know if I'd be ready to jump in. If I could play keys,
Takes time.
if I could play keyboard really well, I'm sold.
Yeah, but at that point, are you playing it? Or is the
Shut the
Neuralink
fuck up,
playing
Mike.
it?
I want to do it. don't you take this from me.
Yeah, listen, I'm trying to have fun with my Neuralink.
If I wanted to be Mozart with a little bit of Billy Preston in there, like that'd be pretty tight.
I'm kind of back and forth on the whole idea of like futurism is cool, and I like that it offers so many things, but some of it takes away from, like, even the AI we see now, like AI generated writing, and they're like, this AI can write a whole book for you. It's like, yeah, but do I want to read a book written by AI?
Yeah.
I don't, but maybe that's just me. There's something about removing the human element that just takes me out of it, and now I'm like, it's not really that interesting. Like, for me, the value of the Jameson goes down when AI are making it,
When the AI are throttling the supply and demand, and they've been going around Dead & Company, Shakedown Street, and they're taking away Jameson, they're buying it just to know that they're gonna have a stockpile later on.
Once it can think
That's
that
deep.
critically. Well, now recently, like, there's like a controversy with this YouTube channel. I think, did we talk about this?
No.
It was this YouTube channel. It just popped up out of nowhere, and it's like lo-fi, like jazz fusion type music, and it dropped this whole album, and blew up because I guess they ran a bunch of ads and stuff on top of it. But there's no artists on the track lists, so people were like, "Oh well, this must just be this artist." But then he drops another album like next week, and it's still no track list, and people in the comments like, "Hey, great songs," and the artist is like, "Oh yeah, thank you," but people are saying like, this is AI generated music. It's from like Sono, that app where you plug in vibes and things and it spits it out, and other people have been like, yeah, that guitar loop is present in like 4 or 5 of the songs because that's just one of the AI pieces that it continually pulls on when you enter those prompts in.
Yeah.
But it's almost indistinguishable from any other lo-fi music that you would find that a person made. And so then I'm like, well, is it any better or worse that a human makes it? Humans, we're always going to appreciate crafted things. We always do. When someone's like, yeah, this chair was like handcrafted by one guy, everyone's like, much cooler than a chair that was bought at IKEA and assembled by me.
Yeah. Depends on the guy, though. If you're like, this was handmade by a kid in slavery, it's like, oh, no,
I don't like this anymore. Correct. It's the story behind it.
Exactly. But at the same time, you look at certain companies that do that kind of thing, and it is something that's worth oohing and awing at. You just don't respect the ethic behind it. You wish that didn't exist.
Yeah.
But going almost back to the tribute acts thing that we were talking about before the show started, like there's this boom of tribute acts on the scene that are kind of they're a step beyond cover bands because you know exactly what you're buying into. And for you to go see that band is either inaccessible because it's Queen with Freddie Mercury, or it is overinflated on the price. It's Oasis. You want to go see the Oasis tribute band. I think as the infinite world of internet possibilities gets wider, constraints make the best art. Your local band that writes original music that you can only see down the street on Thursday nights might get more value when there is the infinite world, the internet. And even though it's great, it feels more fickle and less special than the guys that can barely play, but every once in a while they rip you a banger and you're willing to go in for that. Like, I have a small hope for that being the future.
Yeah, well, magic is always in the moments, right? It's always those, like, it's like you can't even force it. It just kind of has to, like, collect in a place to do it. And it kind of comes back to, like, what people want. Because, yeah, maybe somebody does really just want to see a tribute band instead of an original band or a different band or something. They really love that tribute band, even that one specifically on top of it. But yeah, I think in the future you might even have like a tribute band that's essentially just like holograms, you know.
They definitely have that of Michael right now in Vegas.
They have a hologram of him.
I'm pretty sure I've seen a Michael Jackson hologram.
I've been waiting for those holograms. Remember when Tupac did the
Yes.
hologram, and then we just never made another hologram ever again? I'm like, we made it once. Why aren't we making more holograms? That was
Yeah.
really cool.
Dude, the craziest thing is going to be one like you can go to like Anne Frank's house and there's a hologram of Anne Frank giving the tour.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be a crazy market where you can walk onto a Civil War battlefield and you can actually watch this go down. You can walk through the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and with, if you did have an AI that had enough data, you could ask it a question as if it was Anne Frank.
Holy fuck.
So now you're actually talking to Anne Frank.
Yeah.
Well, not exactly, but
Close enough.
the closest we'll ever get. Right?
Yeah. That's very freaky. Trying to turn this a little more hopeful. What kind of thing are you happiest making right now in this new pursuit of your art in the many mediums that you still have accessible? What's an ideal project for you to be working on?
I oscillate back and forth with it, but I think the most fulfilling to me is you're telling stories through like people's lenses, like mini documentary types of things, because there's a level of investigation that's involved, because some of these things are like you have to kind of find pieces and clues here and there. You have to talk to this person, and then when you talk to the next person, you're like, well, this person that I just talked to said that, and then now, even though they've never connected, you're kind of connecting all of these pieces together to form this story and then present it through a lens. But that's also a lot of work and not very like artistic. So I also like just like doing fun stuff too, where it's like you're just filming random stuff, throwing it in a program, cutting it to different types of music and stuff like that. So it's all whatever itch needs to be scratched at that point. But I think as far as like the most value, I really do enjoy, getting to the root of something that should be told that it hasn't been told.
Yeah. And your personal business now is called 6'5 Media, is that correct?
6'5", yep.
And so the group that you did the Bootsy thing with, who was that with?
That was through, I suppose it was like Bootsy's social media team that's, I think, loosely connected with the label.
Bootsy Productions.
Sort of a lot of layers there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's typically how, like, 6'5" will come in some capacity, either directly with an artist, or in the case of either larger artists or businesses, it'll be sort of segmented down to the point where it's like we're hired by the agency that's hired by the client to do this thing. So it gets like this whole web effect network.
Yeah.
But that's can also be really nice too, because when you have someone that's like a specialist working with someone that understands the vision of the person, so instead of trying to put everybody in the room, it's like, no, we have the plan. I understand what he wants. I'm going to tell you because he doesn't necessarily understand what you're doing. Like, I couldn't ask Bootsy and be like, Bootsy, should I shoot you on a 50 mil or a 24 mil, man? He's going to be like, whatever you want to do, baby.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that you do best is not overcomplicating the question of what are you looking for and how can I do it? You bring a really human element to what's our common goal here? Why are you bringing me in? And from there, you can calculate what are the steps that need to be done to make that happen on your end while still getting their input on how to guide this experience. And when folks ask me about someone that can lead a videography team, I always have nothing but great things to say about you and your work. So I really appreciate
it, man. Thank you.
Being able to call you a friend to sit down and chat like this is always a real privilege, man. So thanks for everything you do, and thanks for coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah, anything you want to promote on the way out?
Check out 6FI if you're doing anything. Honestly, if you need content, because it's way beyond music now. Everyone needs video. Everyone needs things. And even if you have questions, feel free to hit me up, and I'll see you at the next Matt Waters show.
One of the best in the game. Mike Heffron, everybody. Pimps and players, enjoy the beautiful fall weather. If you don't have it, fly to it, and take care in the meantime. Peace.